And welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf. On the 13th of December last year, the federal government, through the Ministry of Education, announced the exit of government-owned tertiary institutions from the Integrated Personnel, Payroll and Information System, IPPIS. The federal government cited an infringement on the autonomy of universities, among other issues, as a reason for the exemption. The minister also said the exemption was with immediate effect. However, 2 months after that announcement was made, it does appear that that directive has yet to be given effect. Last week on Hard Copy, we spoke with the current Vice Chancellor of the University of Maiduguri, Professor Aliyu Shugaba, who brought us up to speed on how it's been running a university post an insurgency. In the course of our conversation, he not only revealed that the lecturers in his institution have either not been paid as a result of challenges on IPPIS, but that people not known to his institution have also been included via IPPIS on the university's payroll. On Hard Copy tonight, we speak with the Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, a senior advocate of Nigeria, on why it's taken so long to resolve the payment of lecturers, among other issues. Professor Tahir Mamman, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I do recall that in December when you made that announcement, as a journalist who has followed and also covered extensively, or let's say interviewed extensively on the reason for strikes and some of the strikes here in Nigeria, especially university lecturer strikes. When you made that announcement of the exemption of tertiary institutions, I thought to myself that, oh, the federal government is about to, really pour cold water on the front in its conversation with ASU so that it can step on, really pleasant ground with them. And that's what I thought. However, having had the conversation with Professor Aliyu Shugaba of the University of Maiduguri, it was quite a shock that almost 2 months after you made that announcement, universities are still being paid via IPPIS. What exactly is going on?
Well, Maope, your thoughts are still correct. Nothing has changed. That decision of the government is there. But however, you remember that in every scheme there are transition periods and then there are implementation issues. Remember those reasons which led to tertiary institutions being brought under that framework. It was largely about problems with governance in the universities, tertiary institutions generally speaking, and management of financial resources of those institutions. Now, government wants to be sure that this time around they don't fall back to those problems which led them into IPPIS. So, certain framework and guidelines needed to be put in place that will guide them, exercise their autonomy, which has been restored fully. And those guidelines have been concluded now. And it's good information for you to know that those guidelines also the vice chancellors, heads of tertiary institutions, all of them, and the unions were invited at the stakeholders meeting to make an input to make sure that everybody was familiar and aware of why the government was doing it. And so that has been done. It's remaining for it to be presented to the Federal Executive Council anytime there's a meeting now. And then once that is done, we'll send them to the university for their guidance. So everything is still that decision still remains subject to only what I've just said. And so nothing has changed at all.
Okay, so this is different from the roadmap on education which you're working on. Just clarifying that the autonomy guidelines which you're working on for tertiary institutions is different from the roadmap which National Council of Education has also approved.
The guideline is simply post IPPIS, how the university will manage their funds, normal governance was provided for under the law setting them up. That's just what it is about. And so that they don't have to go back to head of service for approvals, for waiver, and any other thing. So that's what that guideline is all about.
So So how long? Because when you made that announcement and you said it was with immediate effect.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it was an interesting thing that you underlined that. You didn't just say, make the announcement that, the federal government is granting an exemption.
Yeah.
You also added the fact that it was with immediate effect. And for a number of people, we thought, by December, maybe at the latest, that would have been sorted. Maybe from January, because it was also anticipating a new year. We should no longer be hearing of universities or tertiary institutions or IPPIS.
As with any law or regulation, there's usually a small transition period. And I remember at that time when this thing was done, we were in the middle of December.
Yes.
And there's no way you could simply, let's say, its implementation will now commence when the finance people will need to do what they need to do. And then, as I said, those guidelines are very important to have them. And we could have churned out the guidelines from the ministry. But typical of the way we do things, we like to engage our stakeholders, the entire university tertiary education system. That's how we've been operating, But the same thing with them. Some of the things happening in the universities may not be quite known to us. And so that's why we needed that stakeholder engagement to be sure those guidelines were understood by everybody. And as I said, it's already cleaned up. So at the next meeting, I believe, for FEC, that will be cleared, and then we will now send it for them to implement immediately.
How much longer do you think it will take?
I think next meeting of NEC is already before the Secretariat. It's already with the Secretariat of FEC.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't say how much longer. I mean, when you made that announcement, so when you actually think that the whole thing will be settled and universities will be back to where they were or even better than where they were before the introduction of IPPIS.
We didn't say we are going to come up with another regulation or another framework for payment. No, we just said, okay, this was what you were before. We are reverting to it.
Yes.
But while reverting to it, you need to be reminded of your responsibilities under the law, both under the Act and under the various laws in the country.
What I'm saying is, how long is, because right now we understand that universities are still being paid via IPPIS. That's the situation, which you have also confirmed. And under IPPIS, lecturers complained bitterly that their salaries were mutilated. A number of them were not getting their full salaries. A number of them were not even getting paid at all. And shockingly, people who had no business with the university system were interestingly included on IPPIS.
You can now understand why it is important to have those guidelines. That's what those guidelines seek to address. So it's not just automatic, okay, you go back and then you leave all the issue that led to them being under IPPIS.
In the first instance.
Yeah.
We'll take it for granted. So I'm saying now that you're going back, how much longer do you think that for those lecturers who have not been paid or whose salaries have been paid in halves and quarters, how much longer do you think that they will need to wait before these issues are resolved for them?
No, for now, I'm not aware that there are people whose salaries have not been paid. They are being paid, in the present system. Most of the issues are beyond what we are actually talking about. But in any case, as I said, in any system, there's usually a short period of transition. It could be 1 month, it could be 2 weeks, that will allow you cleaned up.
Yeah.
It will allow you cleaned up.
Honorable Minister, what I want you to do is put a definitive time to this entire cleanup. And when lecturers will finally be settled.
We are done with the regulations. We are completely done with it. But it's not, it has to be approved by the Federal Executive Council. And that's just what we're waiting for. It's already in the Secretariat of the Federal Executive Council. So I believe next meeting of FEC, it could be tomorrow, it could be next tomorrow, it could be next week. I can't put a date on it. But next meeting, I believe that will be cleared. I remember NEC usually meets, FEC usually meets once a week.
But looking at the scandals that have emanated from what IPPIS was supposed to have cured, are you, scandalized as a minister that, these kinds of issues are existing in a system that was supposed to have been honestly clearing up the mess which universities were blamed for.
I am, because I don't like it, because I don't know exactly what the issues are there, why those issues exist with IPPIS, and that is why if you remember too, the president with FEC decided to subject IPPIS, the entirety of IPPIS, to further scrutiny. We have a standing committee of FEC which is looking at the integrity of that platform. So we are waiting for a report on that.
Okay. Well, we hope that the report of that standing committee comes out very soon. Okay, it'll be interesting to see in the future just how quickly.
And in any case, you remember, I don't know if you haven't alluded to this, their 4-month salary have been cleared. These are one of the things which the president, you remember, even though they were not entitled because of the strike action.
It wasn't negotiated. It wasn't not negotiated in the sense that federal government agreed to pay 4 months out of the...
It was not a product of it was the discretion of the president. He said, okay, yeah, it has happened. The law is that, but in order to continue with the kind of environment we talked about, he directed they be paid 4 months. And that's what admin staff is also being worked upon.
Was administered via IPPIS?
They paid via...
The 4 months
paid via...
was administered via IPPIS.
Exactly.
Prof, you did say that you're not aware that some lecturers were being owed. And that's a bit concerning, because vice chancellors have confirmed that some lecturers in the employment of their universities are being owed salaries. And this, we all know just the current economic hardship. So why I was trying to extract a timeline from you in terms of when all of these issues will be resolved was because, some people's personal livelihoods are at stake.
I share with you those concerns, but remember that ministries don't pay salaries. Salaries are paid from the Ministry of Finance. So I will not directly be in a position to know if a particular lecturer has not been paid in any particular university. And so usually they will direct that to the Ministry of Finance, and they know how to go about. These are administrative hitches here and there, which they can handle, which finance will handle for them. That's why the education...
Well, eventually it comes back to welfare. Part of the reasons why ASU has gone on strike before now is welfare, conditions of its members, poor funding of public universities.
Yeah, you want them to be comfortable.
So if you want them, are you sure you wouldn't have something within the Ministry of Education to ensure that whenever there is a complaint, you also can follow up with the Ministry of Finance on what exactly is happening?
We do that. Certainly we do that. How many times I've been to my colleague in the Finance Ministry? I go there from time to time when there are issues. I phone them. So we have that synergy. But as I said, some of these nitty-gritty details, there are things which the universities, they are probably BASA would be following up with the Ministry of Finance. And I remember how many universities are in Nigeria. So each detail will not come to the ministry. We haven't received details from any university in respect of that, except usually we deal with all these global issues and complaints. And when we get them, we reach out to our colleague in the Ministry of Finance.
Okay, so Honorable Minister, let's take a look at some of the things that you have said you want to do. By 2027, you say you want to be able to remove 15 million out of school children from the room.
Or more.
15 million.
They are very ambitious.
Ambition is good. The question is how?
Well, we have a scheme. For the last 3 months, 4 months, we've been planning on that. And I think we are set to implement now those plans. And, it has to do quite a number of things, actually. Because when you train this number of people, not just put them in a classroom, give them lectures for 2-3 days, and that is the end of the story. No. You are talking about giving people exposure to some skill sets such that by the time they are through with it, they can be employed or they can be on their own. And then, of course, there are also age brackets. There are some who are too old to go back to formal education, so they need those skill sets more.
I do recall that when UNESCO and UNICEF talked about 18 to 20 million, the federal government in the last administration debunked those figures. They put theirs at about 7 million children. So the first thing I was going to ask you was 7 million children, according to the federal government. You're talking about 15 million. Have we been able to do a census to determine how many children are really out of school?
Mope, I am not in the business of throwing around figures. What we have done and what we are doing now is to look. Nigeria is one of those, unfortunately, one of those few countries that you really readily don't have figures on a lot of things. We are set to address that problem. This is going to be one of the major achievements of this administration of Mr. President. And what is it? We are about to roll out a plan, a program that will require registration of students from primary one, from the day they step into school from primary one, until they graduate in the university or stop where their education took them to. For the whole country, we will now monitor them year by year, whether they continued or they dropped at some point, and also understand, they are learning, the quality of learning they are having, experiencing at that stage. So take it from me that by next year, because this scheme that we are talking about, we are beginning implementation very, very soon, and it is our plan to conclude it by end of this year. So that from our ministry here, from Ministry of Education, we can tell you, okay, we have this number of students in the primary school, we have this number of students in JSS 1, in Zafara, Ogun, I don't know which one is your state. Adama, happily to say that. Lagos. The governor of Lagos State can simply plug his system there and say, look, in this school we have this number of the people.
So you're collaborating with the states because the education is on the concurrent list?
No, it's not, but we will. But it's a national problem that
education is on the concurrent list?
Education is concurrent list. That's why I'm saying we are going to work with the state governors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just confirming that. Talking about the states now, I know that the UBEC, they've also been speaking on this universal basic education and how some states have not yet fully accessed their own part of the funding, the grants that are available. I think over 46 billion.
We are looking at that issue as well. We are looking at that issue, including the possibility of amending the law so that those funds are not held back unduly.
Yeah, but is there a mechanism to ensure that when states eventually access? We've had all manner of gimmicks that states employ. Some states will take a loan and then use it to access the fund. When they access the fund, they return the loan that they've taken back. So their own money was never really in it. So is it really possible? I mean, is it really? The idea behind is that states should prioritize education. Yeah. So, rightly so. Is there a way that the federal government is now thinking that perhaps this should be made available to states? As Minister of Education, what has bothered you the most? Well, first, I think I want to ask you, what did you finally find out as minister that you didn't know, even as a practitioner at the highest levels in the private and government sector?
Yeah. Well, let's say about two majorly. The learning crisis at the basic education level. We've been crying, the whole country has been crying that students simply cannot read and write and cannot understand. Some of them who read and write cannot understand what actually they are reading and writing. And that's a very, very major problem because, at the tertiary level, it is filtered. even though some of them escaped into that level, but it is largely filtered. Those have been dealing with people with fairly reasonable backgrounds. And so I quite didn't understand the scope. I knew the issues were there, but the scope of it is what I didn't understand. And
the scope is alarming?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a very huge scope. Is huge. But my question always has been, well, we have all these good policies in the files, but the story out there is different. People are not impacting. It's not impacting on people. So our job now is to get all these policies, bring them out, and let people feel it on ground. Let the people tell the story of the impact of these policies which we are housing in the ministry. So it's that gap that we are trying to bridge.
That's your biggest headache right now?
Well, it's not a headache, but that is our agenda.
I see how you're trying to frame that. I want to quickly take you up, as we wrap up now, on security. We cannot, underestimate the impact of security on the education of what has happened with out-of-school children, its impact on contributing to increasing numbers of out-of-school children. So I want to know what exactly you intend to do. I know that we've signed up to this policy on Safe Schools initiative, and I'm wondering what it is that, how it is we intend to implement. You've talked about gap between policy and implementation. What precisely are we going to do to ensure that when our children eventually go to school, they're safe there?
Well, definitely issues of safety is it's a very, very profoundly worrisome matter, particularly when you are dealing with such vulnerable young groups, people in primary school, secondary school. And it is one of the major factors, actually, which is keeping students away from school. Because, especially girls, because parents don't feel that they should place their children in harm's way. And now we have that scheme in the ministry about ensuring the schools are safe. Well, this is essentially what we need to do, to give these people and the students the assurance that their schools are safe. If you have very good surveillance, you can deter it from happening. And by the security and then the staff, all the students, so they are being sensitized on what to do to be sure that they also contribute to their own safety. Yeah.
Are you worried about meeting up with your agreement with the president on your deliverables? We understand the Ministry of Education has 23 of them.
I am not. In fact, our plan is to surpass the Mr. President deliverables, and because we have come into the system with a passion to do the right thing. So whether there is we are being supervised or not supervised, for us that's incidental. And not just because it's just the right thing, because if you get education right, every other thing will fall in line. You need educated people to be healthy, to be security conscious, to be engineers, to be doctors, to be everything. So it is the foundation of every society, and that's why developed countries, they invest so much in it. America brings people from all over the world at great cost to ensure that they are top-notch in their education system. The same thing Canada now, even Europe, even UK here, they are taking our teachers, to bolster their educational system.
What do you intend to do to reverse that?
Well, personally, I am not worried, because we have enough teachers in Nigeria. All we need to do is to ensure that what we have are quality. Two, even where we have the gaps in terms of the number, we have the institutions to fill up, to train them. There are more college of education coming on, and then the existing ones we increase the number of their intake, and then we make the teaching profession attractive to the teachers. People have a right to decide where they want to work and live. All we need to do is that when people leave, we should ensure that it doesn't harm our work and the progress of our own society. As simple as that.
Professor Tahir Mamman, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Minister of Education, thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We wish you the very best in your assignment. Well, that's the program tonight. Your feedback is welcome to the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Mal Yusuf. Good night.